When archaeologist Jack Morrison unearths an ancient, otherworldly pyramid in the desert, he encounters Zara, an alien being who reveals that humanity has risen to cosmic greatness twice before and now stands at a crossroads for a third chance to remember its true destiny. The blazing desert sun casts long shadows across the archaeological dig site where Jack Morrison had spent the last 3 weeks of his life. Sand clung to everything, his equipment, his clothes, his very soul it seemed. At 32, Jack had already made a name for himself in archaeological circles, but this discovery threatened to rewrite everything he thought he knew about human history. He knelt beside the partially excavated stone blocks, their surfaces covered in hieroglyphs that defied classification. These weren't Egyptian, Mesopotamian, or any other ancient script in the historical record. The symbols seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, shimmering in the desert heat like mirages made solid. 3 weeks, Jack muttered to himself, brushing sand from a particularly intricate carving. 3 weeks of digging, and I'm no closer to understanding what this is. His team had abandoned the site days ago, spooked by equipment malfunctions and strange electromagnetic readings that made their instruments go haywire. But Jack couldn't leave. Something about this place called to him, demanded his attention. That's when he saw her dot at first. Jack thought it was another mirage. The desert played tricks on exhausted minds. But as the figure approached, her form remained solid, real. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, pale blue-green like moonlight on water. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, and her eyes were the color of nebulae, deep purple shot through with silver. She wore garments that seemed woven from the fabric of space itself, shifting and shimmering with each step. "You are the one who has been calling," she said, her voice carrying musical tones that resonated in frequencies Jack could feel in his bones. "Your species' curiosity burns bright, human." Brighter than most, Jack scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every rational part of his mind screamed that this was impossible, that heat stroke had finally claimed his sanity. But her presence felt as real as the scorching sand beneath his boots. What are you?" he managed to ask, his voice cracking, like a teenager's. The alien girl tilted her head, studying him with those impossible eyes. "I am Zara of the Veil Walkers, and you, Jack Morrison of Earth, have found something that was meant to stay hidden." She gestured toward the excavation site with a hand that had too many fingers, each ending in what looked like crystalline points. "This is not merely a ruin. It is a key." Jack's scientific mind warred with the evidence before him. Everything about this situation violated the laws of physics, anthropology, and common sense. Yet here she stood, this impossible being speaking perfect English with an accent that seemed to come from the spaces between stars. "A key to what?" he asked, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. Years of academic training kicked in, overriding his shock when faced with the unknown. Observe and question. It was the archaeologist's creed. Zara smiled, an expression that was both alien and achingly familiar. "To understanding your true heritage, Jack Morrison, your species believes itself young, barely out of its evolutionary cradle. You measure your civilization in thousands of years, never dreaming of the truth that lies buried beneath your feet." She moved toward the excavation with fluid grace, her feet barely disturbing the sand. As she approached the carved stones, they began to emit a soft, pulsing light. The hieroglyphs shifted and writhed, rearranging themselves into new patterns. "Impossible," Jack breathed, pulling out his camera only to find it completely dead. Not just low battery, utterly lifeless, as if it had never been built. "Your technology cannot record this moment," Zara explained without looking back. "Some truths are meant to be experienced, not documented. Come, see what your ancestors built in the time before forgetting." Jack followed her deeper into the excavation, watching in amazement as more lights began to illuminate their path. The carved blocks weren't random ruins. They were part of something much larger. As the glow intensified, he could see the outline of a massive structure buried beneath millennia of sand and time. This pyramid, Zara continued, her voice taking on a reverent tone, was built by humans. You're humans, but not the primitive tool users your history books describe. These were humans who had learned to touch the cosmos itself, who built wonders that would make your modern cities look like children's sand castles. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate, a deep harmonic resonance that seemed to come from the earth itself. Sand cascaded down the walls of the excavation as something vast stirred below. But that's impossible, Jack protested, his archaeological training warring with the evidence before him. Carbon dating, geological surveys, everything we know about human development. Everything you know is incomplete, Zara interrupted gently. Your species has forgotten itself 3 times over, Jack Morrison, each time rising to touch the stars, each time falling back into darkness. This pyramid is from the Second Age, built 50,000 years before your current civilization drew its first breath. As she spoke, the sand around them began to shift and flow away, revealing more of the structure. It wasn't just a pyramid, it was a complex network of crystalline formations and metallic conduits that pulsed with inner light. The architecture was undeniably human in its proportions and aesthetics, yet incorporated technologies that seemed centuries beyond current understanding. Why are you showing me this? Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why reveal this to one person? Why not to the world? Zara turned to face him fully, and in her alien features, he saw something that looked almost like sadness. Because your species stands at another crossroads, Jack Morrison. The same crossroads it has faced twice before. The path you choose in the coming years will determine whether humanity reaches for the stars again, or falls into another dark age of forgetting. She extended one of her impossible hands toward him. But first, you must understand what you truly are. Touch the keystone, human. Let it remember you. Jack stared at the massive crystalline formation that had emerged from the sand. It rose 30 feet into the air, a perfect fusion of geometric precision and organic flow. Symbols danced across its surface, not the static carvings he had been studying, but living light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The keystone recognizes human genetic markers, Zara explained, her voice taking on an instructional tone, but not just any human. It responds to those who carry the deep memory, the genetic echo of your species' former greatness. Your ancestors called such individuals awakeners. Jack's hand trembled as he reached toward the crystal surface. Every instinct screamed warnings. Don't touch alien technology. Don't trust impossible beings. Don't abandon everything you thought you knew about reality. But a deeper part of him, something that felt older than his conscious mind, urged him forward. What happens if I'm wrong? He asked. What if I'm not one of these awakeners? Zara's expression softened. Then nothing happens, and you return to your dig site with a story no one will believe. But Jack Morrison, you have spent your entire life drawn to the forgotten places, the buried secrets, the mysteries that call to you in the dark. Do you truly believe that is coincidence? Her words struck home with uncomfortable accuracy. Jack had always felt pulled toward the ancient, the mysterious. His colleagues joked that he had a supernatural ability to find significant sights, but they didn't understand the dreams that guided him, visions of vast cities beneath the sand, of humans working alongside impossible technologies, of a time when Earth was not alone in the cosmic dark. Taking a deep breath, Jack pressed his palm against the crystal surface. The world exploded into light and sensation. Every nerve in his body sang with electricity as knowledge flooded his mind, not learned, but remembered. He saw the Earth as it had been 50,000 years ago, when great cities of crystal and metal stretched across continents. He witnessed humans working alongside beings from distant stars, sharing knowledge and building wonders that defied imagination. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the cyclical nature of human development. The first age, when humanity learned to speak with the cosmos itself, the catastrophe that brought it low. The Second Age, represented by this very pyramid, when they rebuilt and reached even higher, the second fall, more devastating than the first, and then the current age, humanity's third attempt to climb from primitive beginnings toward the stars. But this time was different. This time, they were not alone. The Veil Walkers, Zara's people, had been watching, waiting for the right moment to make contact, waiting for an awakener who could help guide humanity past the pitfalls that had destroyed their previous attempts at cosmic civilization. The visions showed him the pyramid's true purpose, not a tomb or a temple, but a repository of knowledge, a library containing the accumulated wisdom of humanity's second age, preserved against the day when they would be ready to remember who they had once been. When the light faded, Jack found himself on his knees in the sand, tears streaming down his face. The pyramid had fully emerged now, its crystalline walls pulsing with gentle bioluminescence. Corridors and chambers stretched out before him, filled with technologies and knowledge that could transform human civilization overnight. Now you understand, Zara said, kneeling beside him. The weight of what you carry, the choice before your species. This knowledge could elevate humanity to heights they have not reached in 100,000 years, but it could also destroy them if they are not ready. Jack struggled to his feet, his mind reeling with the implications. How do I know if we're ready? How do I know if I'm ready? Zara smiled that strange, sad smile again. Because you asked the question, Jack Morrison. Your predecessors, in both previous ages, never thought to ask if they were ready. They simply took the power and assumed they could handle the consequences. She gestured toward the pyramid's entrance, where a doorway had appeared, filled with soft, inviting light. The choice is yours. Enter and claim your birthright, or walk away and let humanity find its own path, as it has twice before. Jack stood before the entrance to the pyramid, feeling the weight of human history pressing down on him like the desert sun. Through the doorway, he could sense vast chambers filled with technologies that would make nuclear power look like a campfire, transportation systems that could cross galactic distances, medical knowledge that could eliminate aging and disease, and weapons that could crack planets like eggs. The previous awakeners, he said slowly, what happened to them? Zara's expression grew distant. The first believed that power was its own justification. They reshaped continents, bent nature to their will, and eventually destroyed themselves, in wars that left scars your geologists still puzzle over. The Second Age learned from those mistakes, or so they thought. They were more cautious, more collaborative. They built this pyramid and others like it as safeguards against their own potential for destruction. She paused, her nebula eyes reflecting depths of sorrow that spoke of eons. But they fell to a different trap, complacency. They became so focused on preserving their knowledge that they forgot to nurture the wisdom to use it properly. When crisis came, they had the tools to save themselves, but had lost the will to act decisively. They archived everything and went into decline, leaving only these repositories behind. Jack ran his hand along the doorframe, feeling the warm pulse of energies beyond his comprehension. And the third time, this time, that depends on you, Jack Morrison. Your species stands at the same crossroads, but the galaxy has changed. The Veil Walkers and others like us have been watching, learning. We will not let humanity walk this path alone again. Zara moved closer, her presence somehow comforting despite her alien nature. But the choice must still be yours to make. Free will is the foundation upon which all lasting civilizations are built. Jack thought about his world, the wars, the environmental destruction, the growing divide between rich and poor, the space program that struggled for funding while military budgets soared. Humanity was capable of such beauty and such ugliness. Often simultaneously, were they ready for the kind of power that lay beyond this threshold? What if I choose wrong? He asked. What if I doom my entire species? Then you will have made a human choice. Zara replied. Your people have always been defined not by their successes, but by their willingness to keep trying despite the possibility of failure. It is what makes you magnificent, and what makes you dangerous. Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the pyramid sang. Not with sound, but with harmonies that resonated in dimensions beyond the physical. Knowledge flowed into him, not the overwhelming torrent from the keystone, but a gentle stream of understanding. He saw how the pyramid's technology worked, how it could be safely integrated with current human science. More importantly, he understood the safeguards built into every system, mechanisms that would prevent the catastrophic misuse that had doomed previous ages. Room after room revealed itself to his enhanced perception. Energy sources that drew power from quantum fluctuations, manufacturing systems that could transform raw matter at the atomic level, communication arrays that could reach across the galaxy instantaneously, medical chambers that could heal any injury, reverse any disease, extend human life indefinitely. But with each wonder, he also sensed the wisdom of the builders. Nothing here was designed for individual use or national advantage. Every technology required cooperation, collaboration, the pooling of resources and knowledge across all of humanity. The pyramid's gifts could not be hoarded or weaponized. They were designed to unite rather than divide. The builders of the Second Age learned something that their predecessors missed. Zara explained as they walked through corridors lined with softly glowing crystals. True advancement is not about individual or tribal power. It is about species-wide elevation. These technologies will only function when humanity works as one. They entered a vast central chamber where holographic displays showed star maps, technological schematics, and historical records spanning millions of years. At the center stood a device that looked like a fusion of tree and machine, its branches reaching toward the pyramid's apex. The World Tree, Zara said reverently, a communication system that can connect every human mind on Earth, allowing perfect understanding and coordination. But it requires willing participation. No one can be forced to join the network. It is perhaps the most important technology in this entire repository. Jack studied the device, understanding flooding through him. This was the key to everything else, a way for humanity to transcend its tribal instincts and work as a truly unified species. But it would also mean the end of secrets, of hidden agendas, of the power structures that currently dominated global politics. The governments of the world will never accept this, he said. Too many people benefit from division and conflict. Zara nodded solidly. This is the test, Jack Morrison. Can your species choose cooperation over competition when the stakes are ultimate survival? Can they choose wisdom over power? As Jack stood before the World Tree, the full magnitude of his situation became clear. He wasn't just an archaeologist who had stumbled onto an incredible discovery. He was now the sole guardian of humanity's evolutionary future. The weight of that responsibility threatened to crush him. I can't do this alone, he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. I'm just one person. How am I supposed to convince world leaders, scientists, the entire human race to completely restructure civilization? Zara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm. You will not be alone. The pyramid has been waiting for an awakener for 5,000 years. In that time, it has been preparing. The holographic displays around them shifted, showing locations across Earth where other pyramids lay buried. Not as grand as this one, but still functional repositories of knowledge and technology. There are others like me, Jack asked, hope flickering in his chest. Not exactly like you, Zara replied. True awakeners are rare. Perhaps 1 in 10 million humans carry the genetic markers. But there are others who possess fragments of the deep memory, who have felt the call of the ancient places. They have been drawn to these sites over the centuries, adding their own discoveries to the record. Preparing for this moment, the displays showed faces, archaeologists, physicists, historians, and philosophers from around the world, men and Women who had dedicated their lives to uncovering humanity's hidden past, many of whom had theories that their colleagues dismissed as fringe science. Dr. Sarah Chen in Beijing, studying quantum consciousness. Professor Ahmed Hassan in Cairo, researching ancient technologies that shouldn't have existed. Dr. Elena Volkov in Moscow, investigating genetic anomalies in archaeological specimens. They and dozens of others have been pieces of a puzzle, waiting for someone to see the complete picture. Jack felt a surge of relief mixed with determination. He wouldn't have to bear this burden alone after all. How do we contact them? How do we coordinate? Zara smiled, and for the first time, her expression held genuine joy rather than sadness. The World Tree has been sending subtle signals for decades, drawing the right people to the right places. They are already in position, waiting for activation. When you place your hand on the tree's core, it will awaken their sight simultaneously and establish communication. Jack approached the device cautiously. Up close, he could see that its bark-like surface was covered in the same flowing script that decorated the pyramid walls. The branches above seemed to reach toward infinity, disappearing into depths of space and dimension that hurt to contemplate. Once I activate this, there's no going back, is there? For you personally, no, Zara admitted. You will be changed on a fundamental level, connected to the network permanently. You will live as long as the tree lives, which is to say, as long as humanity survives. You will feel the emotions and thoughts of every person who joins the network, experience their joys and sorrows as your own. She paused, her alien features showing something that might have been compassion. It is a beautiful gift and a terrible burden. You will help guide your species to heights they have never dreamed of, but you will also feel every setback, every loss, every moment of pain as humanity struggles to grow beyond its limitations. Jack thought of his empty apartment back in Chicago, his ex-wife who had left because he cared more about ancient stones than their relationship, his parents who still didn't understand why he spent his life digging in the dirt. What did he really have to lose? And if I don't do this, if I walk away, then humanity continues on its current path. Perhaps they succeed in spite of themselves. Your species has shown remarkable resilience. Perhaps they destroy themselves in nuclear fire or environmental collapse. Perhaps they simply stagnate, never reaching beyond their home system. Zara's voice held no judgment, only infinite patience. The choice is yours, and either path is valid. Free will is sacred, even when it leads to extinction. Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 8 billion human souls pressing against his consciousness. He thought of children playing in parks who might never see the stars, of scientists struggling with problems that had been solved 50,000 years ago, of wars fought over resources that could be rendered infinite with the right technology. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. If I do this, he said, I want safeguards. I want protection for the people who won't be able to adapt, who will be left behind by rapid change. I want guarantees that no one will be forced into the network against their will. And I want the right to shut it all down if humanity proves it's not ready. Zara's smile was radiant. The builders of the Second Age included all of those protections, and more. They learned from the mistakes of their predecessors. The tree cannot be used to control or coerce, only to connect and communicate. And yes, the final shutdown command can only be given by an awakener. Jack nodded and stepped forward. As his palm touched the tree's core, the chamber filled with light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. He felt his consciousness expand, connecting first to the pyramid systems, then to the hidden sites around the world where other fragments of humanity's lost knowledge waited. One by one, the other researchers came online, confused, amazed, but somehow not surprised. They had been waiting for this moment their entire lives, even if they hadn't known it consciously. Through the network, Jack felt their combined knowledge and determination, their shared commitment to helping humanity evolve beyond its current limitations. Welcome, Guardians, he said, his voice somehow reaching them all simultaneously. "We have work to do." 3 months later, Jack stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed International Cooperation Center, watching as the first volunteers entered the World Tree Interface chambers. The massive facility had been built in record time using a combination of traditional engineering and carefully introduced alien technologies, rising from the Sahara like a monument to human potential. The process had been neither as smooth nor as catastrophic as he had feared. The initial revelation had caused panic in some quarters, violent rejection in others, and wild celebration among those ready to embrace humanity's cosmic destiny. But the careful safeguards built into the ancient systems had prevented the worst-case scenarios. World leaders had been forced to cooperate when they discovered that the new technologies literally would not function for individual nations or corporations. The pyramids' gifts were all or nothing. Either humanity worked together, or no one benefited. It was the most effective peace treaty in history, written into the quantum structure of reality itself. "Remarkable," Dr. Sarah Chen said, joining Jack at the observation window. Her own connection to the network had activated 3 months ago, and she had become one of his most trusted allies in the integration process. 93% acceptance rate among the test groups. "Higher than we projected," Jack nodded, feeling the contentment of the volunteers through his enhanced senses. The World Tree connection, in telepathy in the traditional sense, individuals retained their privacy and autonomy. It was more like a shared emotional backdrop, a sense of belonging to something larger than themselves. "The holdout nations are starting to reconsider," reported Dr. Hassan through the network. His site in Egypt had become a center for sustainable energy research, producing clean power that made oil obsolete overnight. Hard to maintain isolationist policies when your neighbors have solved climate change and poverty simultaneously. Dr. Volkov's voice joined the conversation from her facility in Siberia, where medical breakthroughs were extending human lifespan and eliminating genetic diseases. "The key is patience. We cannot force anyone to accept these changes. The network must remain voluntary, or we become what our predecessors failed to escape." Jack felt a familiar presence approaching and turned to see Zara materializing from the quantum fold dimensions she used for travel. 3 months of working together had made her alien nature seem almost normal, though she still drew stares from the human staff. "Status report from the Galactic Council," she said, her musical voice carrying undertones of satisfaction. "Humanity's integration is proceeding ahead of all projected timelines. Several other species have requested permission to begin formal diplomatic contact. Are we ready for that?" Jack asked, both aloud and through the network. The question rippled through the connected guardians, each adding their perspective to the collective consideration. The answer came back as a carefully weighted consensus: not yet, but soon. Humanity was adapting to its new technologies and social structures with remarkable speed, but they still needed time to fully integrate before taking on the complexities of interstellar politics. "We've learned from our predecessors' mistakes," Jack said, watching as the latest group of volunteers emerged from their interface sessions with expressions of wonder and purpose. "The first age tried to take too much power too quickly. The second age focused so much on preservation that they forgot to grow. We're finding the middle path, fast enough to prevent stagnation, slow enough to maintain stability." Through the World Tree Network, he could feel the pulse of human civilization, transforming itself. Conflicts were resolving as opposing sides gained the ability to truly understand each other's perspectives. Environmental restoration projects were accelerating as humanity finally had the tools to heal the damage of previous centuries. Space exploration programs were being unified into a single species-wide effort to establish permanent colonies beyond Earth. But perhaps most importantly, the changes were voluntary. Every human being retained the right to reject the network, to live their lives according to older patterns. Traditional communities were being preserved and protected, their cultures valued as part of humanity's diverse heritage. The new technologies were being used to enhance rather than replace human nature. The next phase begins tomorrow, Jack announced through the network. Mars colony establishment, deep space exploration probes, and first contact protocols. Anyone who wants to step back, now is the time. The response was immediate and unanimous. Every guardian, every connected human, every volunteer researcher wanted to continue forward. They had tasted the possibility of genuine human unity, and none of them wanted to return to the old patterns of division and conflict. As the sun set over the Sahara, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Jack felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity was finally ready to take its place among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as partners in the vast cosmic community of intelligent life. The ancient pyramid still pulsed with its gentle light beneath the desert sand, its purpose fulfilled at last, and somewhere in the quantum foam between dimensions, the spirits of humanity's previous ages looked on with approval, knowing that the third time truly was the charm. The age of forgetting was over. The age of remembering had begun.